Hello, folks. We're live at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I'm just going to give people about a minute to hop on board. We are live. I'm sure people have a moment to jump in. But we're going to be here with former Disney Imagineer Brian Collins. Thank you so much for being here, Brian.
And I'm very welcome to be here. Very happy.
I'm going to look at the
Hop
Chinese
on board,
theater
everyone.
for a
You
minute.
won't want to miss this.
How great does the Chinese theater look, by the way?
You know, it's amazing with the moon right above it.
Yeah.
Loving that view.
Yeah.
Loving that view.
It's such a, and I was actually just saying to you before we came on, when I went to the real one, I was very disappointed because I think ours is so much prettier.
Of course it is, yes.
Than the real thing out in California. So.
Right. No smog to clean off of it.
Yeah, and I mean they've really just let it go because it's like it's gone for so many ownership changes, and they've put little temporary booths and everything over some of the real handprints and stuff. It's real sad sometimes, but ours is still very pretty.
Show in here, I mean, come on, it's amazing.
Yeah. Probably better than any movie you're going to see premiere at the Chinese theater these days, right?
I would think so. But that's just me talking.
Show people the plaque here. Let you know it's a recreation, which I think this was a necessity out of the licensing of the theater back then.
They did not move the actual Chinese theater here. This is a recreation. So, those crazy
also
Imagineers.
That's the length of the ride track for the Great Movie Ride, 1928, 1,928 feet, in honor of the year the Chinese theater was opened. So there you go. All right, so looks like we got plenty of people. So
another interesting fact is most people find that after they ride the Great Movie Ride, after about an hour they want to ride the ride again. It's so very authentic Chinese.
All right, so what did you want to talk about over here? Well, first let's introduce you a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll step back so we can get you on camera.
So I'm Brian Collins. I am a former Disney Imagineer. Either that or I stole a shirt off of one, but I think
the red light's very ominous. Like you're a Sith Lord.
Yes. You don't know the power. And so yes, I was with WDI back when the studios first opened up. So now that today is the 28th anniversary, I believe, of the opening of the studios, how appropriate to be here and come back and kind of reminisce. And I thought I'd tell you guys a little bit about some of the work I did out here in the early days, writing scripts and spiels for the attractions that some are here, most are not. But and one thing so this is one thing. These lions are very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah?
I will tell you why, because I actually trained them when I was here. Okay, so watch this. Watch. Okay, sit. Sit. Now stay. Stay. Good boy.
There you go.
That was one of my biggest accomplishments. Yeah.
So what did you want to talk about over here? This is one of the spots you picked.
You know what? Coming out here, one thing that struck me right away is looking at all these handprints that they have in the courtyard.
Yeah.
Brings back a lot of memories. They used to have a Star of the Day program where they would bring out celebrities and stuff, and they would do a big handprint ceremony for them.
Yeah, motorcade typically right before, right?
Yeah. They parade up the street and then stop in front. They would get out, do a big handprint ceremony for them.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of these came from. There's one right over here that's kind of near and dear to my heart.
Look at that. It's the only one that's lit. It's like they knew.
Right. They knew we were coming.
They knew we were coming. So these are this is the, not Judy Garland, but the ruby slippers worn by Judy in The Wizard of Oz.
That is correct. So I actually designed isn't that very complicated? This very complex design.
Hey, it's
of the
not
layout.
A perfect square. It kind of angles there, so it's not that easy, right?
So we had to figure out how to get ruby slippers worn by Judy. But the amazing thing about this is that those footprints are the actual footprints from the real ruby slippers.
How did that come about? Did they just contact the people who owned the ruby slippers?
You know, we just had the key to the cabinet, so we grabbed them one night, and it was. I was working with the WDI. Actually has curators that oversee different props and stuff.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, we get our hands on a lot of different props. So at the time, one of the curators for WDI, one of my colleagues, somehow got permission to imprint the ruby slippers in concrete for the courtyard here. And so we did get the actual ruby slippers. I don't know how the insurance company allowed it, but we got the actual ruby slippers. We wrapped them very, very, very carefully in a very light cloth, and wearing gloves, very gently imprinted them into the wet concrete in front of a lot of people. So we only got one shot.
Like one sequin came off of those shoes, man.
Right.
The most perhaps prolific prop in movie history.
Right, right. So, but those are imprints of the actual movie slippers.
And a fun fact, because then they were on display here afterwards.
They were, yeah.
So I guess in case they had to clean the originals or do any work on them or whatever, they made a fake backup pair to put on display.
Right.
And back when I used to work at Theme Park Connection, we sold that fake backup pair. Yeah, and we had to say it was the pair that Disney made to keep show whenever they had to maybe send back the other ones or make sure they were clean or whatever the case might have been. That's a little what I can contribute to the story.
See, now our secret's out, because I used to call in sick to work, but I had a fake one of me that, when I called in sick, I would just prop it at my desk. And they
Ferris Bueller, right?
Yeah.
That's very cool. And this was well after the park had opened, right?
This was, I would say, around 1992 when we did that. Not 1939. That's misleading.
Well, it just has the year of Wizard of Oz.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't ship this over from a real theater or anything like that.
No. So yeah, by that time I was working pretty prolifically. Is that the word? Out here. And actually, I wrote a lot of the scripting back then for some of the scenes inside. I did the scripting for the gangster scene and the bandit scene.
Yeah. And you were saying some of your lines for those characters are still being used.
I think they are. Yeah. Yep. And also designed some of the blocking, that the characters. I actually also wrote backstories for the gangster and for the bandit. And for
they have their own little backstories.
They do, telling how the gangster character used to run booze during Prohibition and lived a hard life, and the bandit was an orphan, and it was a lot of fun. And that's not anything that the guest would ever see. This was done. This is often done for a lot of attractions where you've got iconic characters like that. And that way, any cast member who's portraying those characters, they understand what the backstory is and how to relate that character back to the guests and give a more consistent show.
That's cool.
So
still in use. That's amazing considering how many refurbishments and overhauls they've done of this attraction over the years.
It's kind of fun, because I can still come out here and say to my kids, look, your dad did that, and they don't believe me half the time. And then I'll show them a script I wrote, and they'll say, oh, wow, you really did do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of fun.
Okay. So we're going to go to the old Animation Courtyard now? Is that the plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go over there. Talk about some stuff you did there.
So the Animation Courtyard, very, very different now, obviously.
Well, now it has Star Wars in it.
Right. Yeah. But way back then, when the studio first opened, it was very much a working animation studio. As a matter of fact, most of the classic second wave of classic Disney animation features, pieces or parts of them were animated here at the Disney Studios.
And I know particularly in the later 90s, Mulan and Lilo and Stitch, I know, had a lot of work. Well, a majority of the film was actually even done.
Yeah, Little Mermaid was done here. Beauty and the Beast. I mean, all of them. Hunchback, Notre Dame, which, and then also Roger Rabbit. Some of the Roger Rabbit shorts. Were really fun.
And those shorts, I think, were actually fully produced here. I think start to finish.
They were. Yeah. Roller Coaster Rabbit was one of them.
What was there was a Baby Herman one.
There was a Baby
Tummy
Herman.
Trouble? Is that?
I think that was something like that.
Know. I'm not the expert on the shorts.
So yeah, here we have the Star Wars launch bay.
Yeah.
Which
does it hurt you to go in there and see what it is now?
Not
that launch bay is a bad thing, but seeing
right.
that space that was intended for something
it's
very, very different.
It's very I don't know, melancholy, I guess, if you will. Because actually the script I wrote for the animation tour was actually the first script I wrote as an Imagineer. That's actually what helped me get my job in Imagineering. I went to go see the creative director at the time, and I expressed my interest in wanting to be an Imagineer, and he's like, yeah, you and a million other people. And I said, no, really, I do. And once he stopped laughing, he said, well, I'll tell you what, we've been having some trouble with the animation spiel, with the animation tour. Here's the script, why don't you take it and see what you can do? And he gave it to me, and I went home and worked on it, and I guess he liked what he did, and that kind of is what got me in the door.
Now, we didn't even talk about this in the interview we recorded for the podcast, but I'm going to ask you this because I think it's something that I think about a lot, especially in current attractions.
Yeah.
I think the writing for a lot of current day attractions is very poor. And I'm not picking on Universal here, but I rode the Jimmy Fallon ride, and I thought the writing just felt very weak. And even some of the stuff here comes on. The Jack Sparrow attraction that was here comes to mind. What do you think when you're writing back then? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals when you sit down to write spiel for an attraction?
Well, it's kind of like I said before. Before I did, my spiel at the other attraction, it was just known as the good movie ride. Yeah. And once I got done with it, it became just saying.
Yeah.
Personally, for me, it was all about, if it was an established attraction like the Great Movie Ride, for example, there were very talented Imagineers that worked on that wrote the scripts, and, I'm not going to take credit and say I wrote the script for the Great Movie Ride. I enhanced it. My job was to, I think, just keep the intent of what the original story was and write to that story and keep it as true to that as I could. And also, whenever, as a show writer, I was coming up with, whether it was scripting or signs or whatever it may have been, there's a certain feel that Disney writing has to it.
Yeah.
When you go on a Disney attraction, you can tell it's got just a very different style to it than a Universal attraction or another theme park. So I think it's just really important to kind of keep that holistic understanding, at the top of your mind. We were very lucky back then. A lot of the original Imagineers were still around, and they would come and they would talk to us, whether it was
you were
about
telling
the
me
art.
earlier you were lucky enough to even take tours with John Hencher on Epcot Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, which was phenomenal. Raleigh Crump, I remember him coming, and he would talk to us about how he designed It's a Small World, the facade, for that.
Which is important because those guys invented what a theme park is. It didn't exist before them.
Right. Meeting Mark Davis. How can you not have conversations with these guys and not have a profound impact on the work you're doing?
Yeah.
And, they were always just so gracious. So, for me, I think it was just really important to make sure that you were honoring the intent of what the attraction was or could be, and kind of writing to that.
And writing like the animation tour. Yeah. What is the process on something like that?
So for that one, like when that was given to me, they told me that they were having trouble with some of the sections weren't really engaging the guests very well.
Which it's hard to follow that film, right? Robin Williams and Walter Cronkite. It's
was
a legendary film.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to keep people hooked at that level after that.
And there was a lot of information that had to be delivered. We've got some stormtroopers over there. How's that for a interesting?
How times have changed.
Right. But anyway, so there's a lot of information that had to be delivered that was not only entertaining, but also operational information as people were getting into the attraction and getting ready to take the tour. Yeah. So how do you deliver that operational information in an engaging, interesting way.
Yeah.
You know, without just making it really boring and losing people. So that was, for that particular project, that was my challenge, was how do you, you know, make mundane operational information sound interesting. Not that I'm distracted by the stormtroopers.
They are
It's
loud.
very cool. I know. They're going to probably come over here and say,
this kid's getting picked on.
yeah. So, you know, this is kind of fun.
You know,
I
things
never
have changed,
had-
but I think there's still there's some, you know, it's just good in a different way.
Right.
You know. Although I think in 1989, if stormtroopers had walked around and talked to people, I think people would have thought it was just as cool then as they do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we do have, you know, different characters back then.
Tom and Jerry for 5 minutes.
Right.
Moving on.
So,
But yeah, the animation tour was something special. People
Yeah.
still, more so than anything else that closed in this park. That's the one that most people
Yeah.
bring up over and over and over again.
yeah. I actually worked on a really fun project on the back of the animation building. At one point, we created these steel cutouts of all the different primary main Disney characters.
Yeah.
And there were a couple really cool, interesting things about that project. One, it was one of the first times that they had ever put such a variety of different Disney characters together. And one of the fun things about that was we had to figure out the proportions. So we had like
So they had to be like height appropriate.
proportional. Yeah, so we had Baloo back then, we had Tinkerbell, and we had to figure out how big would Tinkerbell be if she was next to Baloo. Not only that, how big would Mickey and Minnie be?
And it's
How
weird
big
because
would
now we're so used to them intermingled on merchandise and things
Right.
like that, but back then that was very new. And I even think about right behind us there was the Eisner film.
All right. Well, if you pan over
Where
just
they,
over here to the right, you can kind of see this mural.
Well, there you go. All the Disney Junior characters are all very different. Yeah.
No,
there
but
you
back
go.
then, so we had to figure out the scale of the different characters, and that was like really kind of interesting. The other thing that was really interesting about that project is that animators, you know, with their ink, that's a very different color palette than what sign makers use.
Yeah.
Right? So sign makers use the PMS color scale, whereas animators ink is a completely different animal by itself. So we had the animators drew up handed cells of each of these characters, and we took that and we matched up the colors with PMS paint chips to get the PMS colors to give to the team over at Central Shops that was actually going to paint the characters onto the steel that was cut out. So that was just a very fascinating process to be a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere I've still got. I don't have the cells; those had to go back. But I've got first generation color copies of all those, which is pretty cool. I always imagine I'm going to hang them up in a room somewhere, frame them and hang them up. But my wife's like, "Nah, we got enough Disney stuff." So.
You never have enough Disney stuff. Don't be
No.
ridiculous.
You know, I get home, it's like, just take out the garbage, okay? But I'm an Imagineer. Take out the garbage, okay?
Yeah. Someone in the chat said by far the worst Disney park. I disagree. I love this
No.
park. That's why we're doing Hollywood Studios Appreciation Day.
Right.
We want to break away from that number that this is not. I love this park, and I've been so busy. I didn't even see everything in this park today. I've been so busy.
It's a park in transition for sure.
It is,
And
but I think there's still so much good in it.
there is a lot of good in it. And I'll tell you what, if you guys can be patient and wait to see what's coming, oh my gosh, you know, I think this park is going to transform itself into something really special. But
in the meantime, there's still Tower
There
and
is.
the great movie ride, and
Yeah.
Star Tours,
of
and
course.
Sci-Fi Dine-In, and
You know, we were
Brown
talking
Derby.
about the dichotomy, too, of how you've got, like, the whole 1930s era Hollywood at
Yeah,
the
in the
front.
front.
And then as you get to the back, you get the more contemporary stuff. And I love that. You know, I hope that never goes away. You know, when you walk into Disney MGM or Hollywood Studios or whatever they're going to call this in the next 10, 15 years, and Star Wars Land is open and Toy Story is open and who knows what else is open. I hope you always come up Hollywood Boulevard in the 1930s You know,
yeah,
I mean,
no, as long as that stays, I'm okay with it, because I think that's what Hollywood is to so many people. It is this, they imagine this glitz and glamour, that 30s golden age that maybe didn't really exist, but in our minds at least it did.
Yeah.
And then when you come back here, it's what you know the movies as. You know Star Wars and all that other stuff. So if those two things could live hand in hand, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
But if they touch Tower Terror, then we're gonna have problems.
Right. Well, it might be Guardians of the Galaxy. Who knows?
We'll see.
Well,
I don't think they've said several times this one is safe. So
right.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
You want to take a walk down the old backlot area?
Yeah. That's really my old stomping ground.
Yeah. Did you work back there too? Was the trailer back there?
The trailer was on the back lot. Yeah. Right now there's, I think, a big parking garage where our project trailer was. But
the garage that's back here behind Animation.
Yeah, behind Animation.
Okay. Yeah, which will back up right against the Slinky Dog roller coaster.
Oh, great little show.
We're going to go past that protein spill.
That's pixie dust. What are you talking about? Pixie dust overload.
And we were talking about earlier, what'll be interesting is sort of this intermediate area between the themed lands and the front of the park is sort of this, what's left of the working studio.
Right.
So you're looking at, like, the soundstage is obviously now home to One Man Stream and Voyage of the Little Mermaid and all that kind of stuff, but you wonder if it'll still fit after they're done. So we're not so worried about 30s Hollywood going away, but probably this intermediate stuff would probably be next on the list.
They have the big Pixar Gateway up there.
Which is going away.
Yeah.
Because Toy Story Land will be out around the back.
Right.
And who knows if you'll even see Pixar Studios anymore.
Right. Really gorgeous night here. Very nice.
Courtney asked if anyone's in Moana. No, there's no meet and greet in One Man Stream right now. There is the pirate preview, so you can't see the film. Guardians of the Galaxy meet and greet is supposedly what's going in there. So see what happens with that. So when this park opened, obviously you guys had to work with a lot of not only Disney properties, but you're working with a lot of other companies because they didn't own Lucasfilm at that point. But now they kind of own everything they would want to promote at this point.
Right. But
it's a little different. But do you remember working with some of those third parties?
I
back
do,
then?
absolutely. It was kind of exciting because, like I said, they weren't owned by Disney, so it was cool when we got the chance, especially as Imagineers, to work with those guys. We worked a lot with Lucasfilm. We worked with Jim Henson and the Muppets. I mean, he was, very cordial, low-key, nicest guy. So we used to get a lot of props from Lucasfilm. I remember especially.
Well, a great story you told on the podcast interview is the speeder bike. You guys mocked up. So you had the real speeder bike prop backstage.
Right.
So you guys mocked up what a photo op would look like.
Using the real speeder bike.
And now that photo op is a thing, not with the real speeder bike, but that photo op has become a mainstay of this park for many, many years now and is still there. Right.
I remember we did 3 different ones. One of them was the speeder bike mock-up, which is there now, like you said.
Yeah.
We also did a photo opportunity with Dick Tracy cars and wearing the Dick Tracy fedora and, the Tommy gun, but I don't know if a lot of people even really remember Dick Tracy. It was kind of a fun movie, but...
Yeah, my father was very, very into Dick Tracy, but he grew up with, Dick Tracy. And so it wasn't, to us, I think to so many people my age, it's a vague movie memory.
Right.
But Dick Tracy was a thing before that movie existed. So.
Right. And then the third one we mocked up was Indiana Jones, where he was taking the gold idol at the beginning of the first film and trying to steal that. So
we'll probably stop right here because it gets real dark and it's like the shady part of town.
Yeah, right.
Back here now. They don't even have lights on those walls, man.
Yeah.
Well, we have some light here. What still looks like a soundstage, but now the third track of Toy Story Mania in there.
Right.
But, But back here was the Backlot Tour, although it did start, previously started where we just were.
Right.
When the park first opened, it was at the Animation Courtyard.
Correct.
And then it moved over here to what was just a stop along the path.
You know, I have not been in this park for a while, and I'm trying to like get oriented and figure out what used to be in front of me. I'm assuming it was.
So right here was that warehouse.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you.
Oh, this
again,
was
they know we're here.
Where the Dipmobile was?
Yeah, because there was that was the entrance to Backlot Tour for the last however many years. It was right there where the tram crashed through.
Okay.
But you're right, that was the Dipmobile way back.
Wow.
That was where the Dipmobile had crashed through, which I have vague memories of as a kid.
Okay. That was fun. And they
that
had,
was such a cool part. The Toon Patrol car recently vanished. I'm kind of wondering where to find it.
What about the Splash Fountain? Was that around?
It was removed. It was still here when they closed, but it got carefully removed. It wasn't bulldozed or anything. So it's safely sitting somewhere backstage.
I wrote the plaque for that. So.
Well, you're saying you wrote a lot of those plaques, like Dinosaur Garden. You were saying
Right.
you've written the plaque for
Right.
as well. The show writer is an interesting job, and then you're writing spiels and text
Right.
for plaques. And
Family-friendly
very diverse.
graffiti for...
Family-friendly graffiti. You brought that one up before too.
Yeah.
So what the construction? There were construction walls out on the tour.
There was on the back lot on the New York Street, and they were doing real construction, so they had to put construction walls up. And being Disney, they had to be themed like it was like a real New York construction site.
Yeah.
So my boss came to me. It's one of the first jobs actually I had. He said, "Can you write some family-friendly graffiti to go up there?"
Yeah.
And yeah, that was an interesting job. Sometimes you have to try and go home and explain to your family what you did at work that day.
Yeah.
Boy.
Did you had to explain to him? I talked to a rollerblading rabbit from Adventures in Wonderland.
Yeah. Again, you know, back then there was a lot of production, production going on. So, yeah.
There's a lot of construction going on, as you probably hear in the background. We just heard something drop.
Right.
Someone asked, what do you think was the most popular part of the Backlot Tour?
What was...
Catastrophe Canyon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like people are always kind of like Catastrophe Canyon's just kind of there.
Yeah, it was kind of cool, kind of hokey-ish. This is the new nighttime light show. That's you know, I never really stopped to think about it. I like to think that everything I wrote about was, you know, the best part of the tour. Probably going through New York residential streets, seeing the facades of those houses, especially or the Boneyard too. If we had some interesting stuff in there, I remember for the longest time they had the Flight of the Navigator pod.
Yeah, it was still there up until close.
Yes. If people even remember that movie. Yeah. But then I was saying before, like one of the things they asked me to do one time when they were making the film Honey, I Blew Up the Baby, I was in Glendale for some other business, so they set up a screening for me to go watch the movie before it was done and take a look and see what props we might be able to acquire from that film. And we wound up getting this giant red tennis shoe that we put on the Backlot Tour. That was really kind of fun. From the Rocketeer, we brought the Old Dog Cafe over.
Yeah.
So again, these are older movies, so you know, if you don't know
kids, you might need to look them up.
Right. But watch
which is funny, at One Man's Dream, actually, between having the Belle dress and this pirate costume, they needed to fill the case. So there were two movies that went in there, and all I thought about was these had to be sitting backstage somewhere.
The Rocketeer?
There was close enough. There was the bride's dress from Father of the Bride, and Madonna's outfit from Dick Tracy,
the black sequin,
which are both like peak MGM Studios time.
Right.
So those had to be here somewhere.
Yeah, that was on the Backlot Tour, on the shuttle tour, in the big glass window
Costuming?
of the costume.
Yeah.
That was in there for a little while. So
it's interesting that they must have still been here when they knocked down the old costuming, and they must have just been like, we'll just throw those in there, right?
Wow.
So a little bit MGM still was here for a little bit, and I imagine once the pirate costume goes, we'll get those back again. So
yeah, I remember from the Rocketeer we had a couple of the rocket packs, the jet packs, a couple of the helmets. I've got pictures somewhere with me in my office wearing the helmet. Which, lights
again. All right. Someone asked what kind of production took place on the Backlot.
There was a lot of stuff. There was everything. I don't think any full feature films were ever shot here, but they did what they called a lot of second unit stuff for film. So, you know, we talked about Honey, I Blew Up the Baby. They shot some scenes here. Oh gosh, Passenger 57. A lot of TV stuff. There was a really cool show that had. There was a mini-series called Separate but Equal that was about that famous court case, and they actually recreated the Supreme Court on one of our sound stages, which was very cool. And I remember they had, for the giant marble columns, they were actually these big PVC sewer pipes that they stood upright, and they painted them with the marbling to look like the columns, and it was amazing. And then they had the benches and everything.
And New York Street got used a fair amount for
New York Street got a lot of corporate stuff. I mean, you know, I was a production assistant before I got into Imagineering, and a lot of TV stations would come down and they would shoot remote stuff. You know, Good Morning America and stuff like that. So it was just really a wide range of stuff. Of course, Mouseketeers, Mickey Mouse Club. And
right behind you, we had Let's Make a Deal, right? That was right in here.
And Wheel of Fortune shot here.
I actually went to a WCW wrestling taping in the building behind us. So. And then also later in the later in the 90s, they filmed out in front of the park. I went to that too. And Thunder in Paradise with Hulk Hogan.
That's right.
Filmed here and some stuff at Epcot
too. Right. The Adventures of Black Jack Sparrow, which was a pirate, a modern day pirate thing. Yeah. And at one point we had a cannon from that series was over in Adventureland by Pirates of the Caribbean, and one of the planters. It's not there anymore. There was also a really cool speedboat, like a jet black, really cool looking speedboat that we had. So.
Someone asked, what would you like to see added to the park other than Star Wars and Toy Story?
Oh my gosh. Well, Star Trek, you know, because I'm a nerd.
Still no theme park has that. I don't understand
I know. Go figure. You know, Guardians of the Galaxy would be really cool.
But not a Tower of Terror.
But not a Tower of Terror.
You got to clarify.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're going to get hate mail.
I would love to see them do some kind of something with some old, like, classic film noir kind of stuff, like some old, like Sunset Boulevard or James Cagney or something would be really cool. You know,
something to dream about.
You know, I mean, it's not... I mean, you got to remember where you came from, too.
Yeah.
You know? And there's just so much cool stuff in some of those old movies.
Yeah.
So
I think the problem with that is this generation. I don't think TCM's quite that popular with this generation. I don't know.
One of my favorite guys is Mel Brooks. You know, so anything with Mel Brooks would be awesome,
we almost had Mel Brooks stuff in this.
But I don't know if
right?
Mel Brooks and Disney would.
It almost happened, man. Instead of Tower Terror, we almost had Hotel Mel.
Oh, really?
And then there was another idea for a dark ride where you rode on magic golf carts through sets of his movies he was filming.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah.
Wow.
They came very close. Mel Brooks and his son were big Disney fans.
That
Never happened.
Yeah. Well,
no, I know. His very raunchy, right?
Right, yeah.
But Spaceball's the ride, man. That would be my dream. I still want that more than anything in the world, but probably not.
You know, baked beans in the commissary, and you know, I mean, there could be a whole
I'm sure at some point
here.
they have. Oh boy, and those lights are out again. How about that? So there's just a big dark mound of dirt back there. It's a real seedy part of the underworld back here, right?
The underworld.
Oh, I'm gonna keep saying it if they're gonna keep turning them on and off, right?
Maybe they didn't pay the electric bill or only paid half of it or something.
That or they hit another. They hit wiring again.
Characters over there on the wall. So,
but what do you think about what they're doing back here? What do you think about these projects?
Well, you know, I mean, I don't know how well your viewers can see some of these murals.
They've probably seen them enough on the website at this point. I probably have overanalyzed them at this point.
You know, I'm for it. Yeah, I've never been one to really be upset about change. You know, I mean, even when they change the Great Movie Ride to Robert Osborne's spiel in their record spiel.
Yeah.
You know, I'm good with that. I think that they did a fine job, and there's enough live action left in it. So change in of itself, I'm not one of those people that as soon as something new is announced, it's like, I freak out. I always give Disney the benefit of the doubt, and I'm telling you, I think when Star Wars Land opens up, it's going to be like nothing, you know, anyone has ever seen. Pandora is, from all accounts I've heard, just amazing. Yeah. Toy Story Land, especially for kids,
it fits a good niche for this park. I think. Yeah. This park doesn't have a whole lot.
I mean, you know,
kiddie rides, honestly.
Yeah, no, I know there are a lot of people who aren't crazy about this park, and you know, it's kind of interesting because, you know, it's hard to imagine what today is the 28th anniversary since the opening of this park, and I remember being here for the grand opening and working on some of that early stuff. But for a lot of people, that's a generation ago, so they've grown up never really knowing this park is what it was. You know, they've only kind of seen it.
Well, we're gonna have to walk over to the light again.
They've only kind of seen it as a park in transition.
And back then, it's worth mentioning, it was meant to be a half day, just behind the scenes sort of experience. Which I think their idea was, hey, we have that cool thing, Pleasure Island. That's probably like you should go to MGM and then maybe you should go over to Pleasure Island and spend the evening there.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But I think that this was such an overwhelming success. People said this park would close at capacity very regularly, and that's why there was such a rush to continue to add things those next 5 years.
Right. Well, the scripts for the attractions were just fantastic, you know. So how could people not like it?
People are like, you got to hear this script for this movie ride?
You're going to keep setting me up. I'm going to keep throwing it out there. So. But yeah. I mean, you know, we were going through some of that stuff in my backpack, and I was like looking at, like, reminiscing about from the, you know, grand opening days, and it was definitely a very, very different park back then.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to, you know, get back to, there's Woody, my buddy. And Buzz.
I mean, with a whole Star Wars themed land, I mean, this could be the most popular of the Walt Disney World theme parks. I mean, it might start creeping up on Magic Kingdom. I mean, Star Wars is a pretty strong property.
Yeah, no, I think for sure this park's best days are definitely ahead of it. So,
not that we can't be nostalgic and like the things that are gone, but but I think it's hard to argue.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, just be patient.
Well, I think we've talked quite a bit. I want to thank you again, and we'll have a podcast interview with you coming up that people can enjoy.
Yeah, awesome.
But thanks for spending the evening with us and talking about Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure, and come visit me on my website too. I'll throw a quick plug in there.
Go for it.
Visit me at www.wdwithme.com, and you can see some blogs and some other podcast interviews and learn a little bit more about my background and what I do. If anyone ever wants a tour of the parks, that's something I offer, dinner with a former Imagineer. So put in a couple more shameless plugs, but email me at brian@wdwithme.com and follow me at wdwithmebrian on Twitter, and there you go.
Yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this, please let us know. Brian said he's interested in doing some more cool stuff with us, so if you like this, please let us know. Yeah. All right.
Great, well, this was fun.
That's going to do it for us. Thanks, you guys, for joining.